In the U.S., most people seldom worry about water. Drinking water flows from every faucet. We take showers in drinking water. We even water our lawns with drinking water. In the U.S., most people seldom worry about water. But what if the water stopped? Hey folks, today I want to talk about water and some things that can affect water and some considerations that as preppers we want to have for water. Now, there are lots of things that can affect water. For example, after a storm, we may be told that the city water isn't safe to drink and we have to boil it. Or if you have a well and there was flooding in your area, your water may need to be checked out to make sure it's safe to drink. But as preppers, we tend to think about the doomsday scenario or the long-term power outage and something that goes well beyond kind of the FEMA 72-hour, have several gallons of water stored away just in case type of scenario. So I want to talk about some considerations today. There are several things that could cause us to lose our access to water. Most people have one of two main sources of water. Either they're on city water or they have well water. Either one of those can be affected by a long-term power outage. So we want to think about things like water storage, alternate water sources, and ways to purify water. So I'm just going to quickly go through a few points on these today. One thing is a lot of people don't even really have a good water storage container. And it's really nice to have a nice big 55-gallon water container. And this has several different purposes, which is what I like about it. First of all, this I actually bought in a kit which contained the 55-gallon water container. It contains the chemicals to treat 55 gallons of water so that it'll stay stable and drinkable in this container for, I believe, 5 years. Also contained the wrench for the top of the container and a fairly chintzy but functional siphon pump so you can get the water out of the container. I'll put the link to this setup. You don't have to buy this, and you could probably actually get a better deal somewhere else, but it at least gave me a couple of capabilities I liked to be able to store water. The other thing I like about this is it can also be used as part of a water catchment system. So what you want to do ahead of time is make sure you have the additional parts you need. As we stand here right now, there's no way my wife is going to let me hacksaw into the gutter to set up the water catchment system. But after the grid goes down, I expect I'll get a little bit less resistance on that, and I've got the extra parts I need to be able to set that up. Now, in a lot of areas of the country, a water catchment area alone is not going to be a sufficient alternate source of water. So we also want to think about alternate sources where we're going to get our water. If we lose our city water, we lose our well. Is there some way that we can think of that we'd be able to get water out of the well, for example, like a baler bucket or that type of thing? Now, in terms of water storage, we have, typically before a hurricane, people go out and clean the shelves of kind of the commercial bottled water. And this is fine for water storage. It's a little bit expensive. So typically what you'll see a lot of people do is they'll store water in soda bottles, in containers such as this. There are many different types of water storage containers that are out there that are fairly inexpensive and you can use to store water. So especially if you assess your situation and you don't really have another good water source, then your only choice is to try to store enough water to at least get you to the point that either help arrives or you're able to figure out another water source. And then if you do have an alternate source of water, you want to think about how you're going to be able to tap into that. For example, I happen to live right near a reservoir, which would be my alternate water source. One thing to think about is how am I going to carry the water if I have to walk over to the reservoir and pick up water. So one of the things I like about these particular containers is I can also transport water using them. Now there's some other water options out there. For example, here is your typical emergency drinking water. And this type of thing is not bad for a get-home bag or a bug-out bag or a FEMA 72-hour bag or whatever. Having these kind of fairly durable, long shelf life water rations, but really it's a very, very temporary emergency solution and awfully expensive to try to store a great deal of water this way. So you'll want to find less expensive alternatives. Now, another thing with water that we want to think about is how can we make the water safe to drink. If we find dubious water, if our alternate water source isn't necessarily clean, potable water, what are some of our other options as far as making water safe to drink? Now, I'm going to put right below this video a link to a EPA emergency disinfection of drinking water kind of desk aid, I guess, or fact sheet. And I highly recommend you print this up. It's 4 pages long. It goes over several things about making water safe to drink. And the reason it's important to print this up, number one, if the grid goes down, you're not going to be able to get it off of FEMA's website. So you want to have a hard copy of this right with your water bag of tricks and your preps. The other thing is if you're not home and your family's got to figure this out, this has got some really, really great information about how to make water safe, to include boiling it, using bleach. Now, one thing about bleach, number one, if you're planning on using bleach as a chemical way to treat your water, number one, you need to make sure you get pure bleach and not something that's scented or has other ingredients in it. The other thing to remember about bleach is it has a shelf life. It gets less and less effective over time. So if you're going to use bleach, in your preps for your water plan, you need to make sure that you rotate that bleach because after a while it essentially turns to water and it won't be useful for disinfecting water anymore. Another chemical means of treating water is something known as calcium hypochlorite or pool shock. Okay, and another thing that you want to consider is some type of water filtration mechanism. And what I have here is this is an MSR Sweetwater microfilter, one of many options that are out there. This happens to be a fairly small filter. This is suitable for hiking, camping, bugging out, whatever. I also happen to have this just in case I have dubious water that needs to be filtered. I can run it through this and it will filter out 9.999% of all the bacteria and nasties in the water. Now, along with that, you also want to make sure that you have extra filter cartridges for your particular water filtration system. The one cartridge that's in here is only going to last so long, and we don't necessarily know how long the grid's going to be down and we're going to be having to use dubious water sources. So you want to make sure you've got plenty of extra filters. So these are just a couple of considerations that people should think about in water storage, thinking about alternative water sources and ways that they can make water safe and basically prepare for an emergency that could happen 5 minutes from now. Again, I really recommend that you print out this EPA fact sheet that I'll have the link to right below this video, and make sure you keep this with your water preps in case your family's got to figure this out. It gives you the exact dosages on whether you're using bleach or you're using pool shock in order to disinfect the water, and has a lot of good information. So I hope this has been helpful to everybody, and thank you very much for watching.